Welcome to the Good Rookies podcast. My name is Faheem.
And my name is Nelly J, y'all, and we are Good Rookies.
That's right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday. And guess what? It's episode 44.
44.
Brother, 4 and 4. Now, if you're on and watching the podcast and you don't know who the gentleman is on right now, please, y'all, get familiar, take some notes. Faheem, please introduce who we got.
All right. So if you're in north of the border, the name rings bells.
Yes.
If you're
yes.
If you're not north of the border, by the time we get to For the Culture, you're going to get familiar.
Absolutely.
We'll leave it at that. Let's welcome Akil Augustine to the podcast today.
Akil.
So much for having me. Thank you for doing this. I'm loving the set. I'm loving the vibe. The details, beautiful. I see my guy Giant, aka Mars Blackman, aka Mike Shelton Lee, right over your right shoulder. Love to see that. That's my hero. So thank you guys for having me. I go way back with Faheem. He knows my brother. We played ball back on Pape, my home court, Matty Eckler Rec Center. So I'm happy to be here to support you, Jomo, Nelly, Faheem. Let's get this.
No, nice. I'm excited, man. Honestly, Akil, go ahead, Faheem. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, no. I was going to say he took it back to the Pape. Yeah, from time. You can always tell when people are making moves. And it's honestly such an honor to have you on the podcast today. Real talks.
Fam. Like, honestly, and Akil, I met you through Funda at a basketball tournament like years ago, and you've always had like a great, I would say, personality. You're consistent. The people on camera who act so, and behind camera act so, right? And Akil doesn't act so or so behind or off the camera, so we appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
But
that
Akil,
was at Apple Creek, wasn't it?
Apple Creek, yes.
I remember that night. My niece Deja, who goes to Apple Creek Church, Kanisa.
Yes.
Shout out the family over there, Dexter and his twin and everybody.
Yep, I go to Apple Creek, and I'm sure they're all going to be listening to the podcast for sure when they see this popping up. But Akil, you're a huge NBA fan. You're a basketball fan. You are a true advocate of the sport. And in the past 48 hours in the NBA, as a fan, we went through the KD game. CP3 test positive, Kawhi's ACL injury, Stan Van Gundy being fired, Scott Brooks part ways with the Wizards, Donnie Nelson, Rick Carlisle era ends in Dallas, Sixers blow 26-point lead, playoff P is now vaccinated P, Zion family wants out of NO, LeBron called up the NBA, and I heard today that Toronto is going to add a new area code. Akil, how do you feel at this point as an NBA fan and a man from Toronto?
I feel like that was one of the best intros to a segment that I've heard, and I can't wait to watch your TV show. That's exactly how I feel right now. That was a better intro than I could have done. That was sick. That was sick.
Thank you. Well, you know what? We're going to talk about all the hot topics, y'all, this episode. So, Faheem, let's get into it.
All right. So, first one let's get into is the LeBron James NBA injury rant that he had on Twitter. There's a lot to unpack with this one. First of all, what I'm going to do is just to kind of set the tone for people who maybe don't know the details of the tweet. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase just some of the things that he mentioned in there. One, he mentioned, he did this. Quote, they all didn't want to listen to me about the start of the season. I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of the players, which ultimately is a product and benefit of our game. These injuries isn't part of the game. It's part of lack of pure rim rest. So let's start with that. LeBron went off in regards to rim rest and the lack of it, and his wanting to protect the players being an elder statement in the league. What do you guys have to say about this?
Akil, brother.
Well, you got 9 All-Stars injured. You got key players like Will Barton and Danny Green, who have lesser names, who are big contributors to teams that we're hoping to have deep pushes into the finals. So a lot of people have dug in. You always have to give a shout out to Kirk Goldsberry and his team. They do a great job with NBA stats, and they tried to dig in and look at exactly what the players are alluding to. And I guess what you have to really understand is that every minute counts, and that means every minute of rest. And I think the NBA, has a 72-game schedule over a compressed timeline coming off of, for LeBron and AD, what was, 2 seasons. You think about the season they played, then a worldwide crisis, and then you reconvene and you go bubble mad and win a championship, and then you're expected to turn that around and be ready to play by December. And it was unfair and it was taxing. But at the same time, at the other end of the pendulum, there's the corporate interest, and the Players Association and the Players Union agreed to this 72-game schedule because they did not want to give up they didn't want to prorate their salaries. Mm-hmm. So, everybody's looking out for their financial interests, and now we have what could be long-term detrimental effects to the game's product. So I think LeBron's right, but I think everybody holds a little bit of the fault in, the dollars and cents of the game ruling over protecting the product, which is indicative of our culture, right? We don't respect the environment. We try to get as much out of our resources as possible. And so now it's trickled out into how we treat people. And we see that every day in corporate culture, and now the players are dealing with how the average employee and average civilian feels about how a company looks at them as just a good in service.
Yeah, I mean, great point, Akil. And to think about, the 2 teams that made it to the finals, Miami Heat in the bubble and the Lakers, they had the most injuries. Like, I had Butler on my fantasy team. I mean, Lord, he played how many weeks for me, brother? Like, no, real talk. And then my finals, I didn't, actually, Dexter and I were in the finals for a fantasy league. Dexter, you mentioned him with the Twins. Yeah, and I lost to him because Jaylen Brown went down. Butler didn't play. DeRozan, I mean, injuries have been plaguing the season. And I was told by someone who's actually a PT doctor that prior to the season, doctors did tell the NBA that the effects of a short season will affect players not early on, but it would actually affect them as the season went on. And as we saw from May to June, what has been the most injuries. And as a fan who likes to see a good product, it just sucks seeing someone like Kawhi, who was going to actually make history to have the Clippers enter a Western Conference Finals and compete in the finals. Seeing that, my heart just broke. After seeing KD, 49, 17, and 10, and you see Kawhi go down. It's just so sad as a fan to see these amazing athletes not performing during this time in the NBA playoffs.
So I saw an Instagram post that had to do with the Larry O'Brien trophy, and it had a bandage on it. It had a crutch, and they're talking about it being an injury championship. And it's funny. We kind of mentioned this before on previous podcasts, but we talk about Adam Silver and how he wants to incorporate the mid-season tournaments. And like LeBron has not been really an advocate for a lot of the things that Adam Silver is doing. With these injuries that have been happening this postseason, the writing's kind of on the wall, and I think we're kind of seeing there's gonna be a power struggle happening now, because LeBron, being the face of the league still, as far as in the league as he is, and Adam Silver, they need to be on the same page with your superstar. And it seems like they seem to be parting. As this goes on, especially with COVID and the pandemic, they seem to be drifting farther and farther apart in what they want in regards to interest of the league. What do you guys think about the playoffs, the winner of the playoffs and championship this year? Are you guys, how they like to throw asterisks around? Are you guys buying the asterisks of the champion of this the league this year?
Nope. And I'm not buying the asterisks on the championship of last year. And to what you were saying a little bit earlier about the whole tournaments and thing, I don't understand that. Right. I think that's an example of going too far. I think the play-in tournament is brilliant. For some reason, at the end of the season, we're talking about Russell Westbrook and the Washington Wizards, who were a terrible basketball team fighting for the 8th seed. And that was all Stephen A. and all Shannon Sharp could talk about, right? So, it obviously worked. It drove up a lot of attention. You got to watch Ja Morant in a significant game because he probably wasn't going to play one all year coming in as an 8th seed, right? Or a 9th seed, technically. So that was all good for that. But I think the problem when you try to do these mid-season tournament stuff is I think they're looking too much at Europe and trying to penetrate Europe and how Europe works. Like that works in soccer because like Chelsea was actually a club in like the late 1800s, and the people who played Chelsea actually remember the steel and iron workers, and all those teams have really deep culture attached to those smaller tournaments and those copas and those Euros and all these little things that soccer has, right? That's part of soccer culture. David Stern made sure it was an individualistic single-player league. And I'm not sure that people are going to care enough to watch, New Orleans and Milwaukee in some midseason tournament, right? It's not how American basketball works.
Facts.
I agree with you. I am on that train to kill. It's a no for me. I don't think it's needed. Mid-season tournament, like I get it. You want to make more money. I get it. You lost money. The NBA, I get it, y'all. But everyone lost money. Like we all struggling, brother. Like NBA, you struggle with us. You struggle with all of us. Okay. So no for that tournament, Faheem. I'm sorry.
So we just mentioned right now in regards to mid-season tournament adjustments that the leagues are making. With the pandemic, now in regards to the fan behavior, I want to get into that. We're talking about a situation where fans have been locked up and now gradually getting back to normal, being in the stands. We've noticed over about a week of just different players having fan issues, whether it be Russell Westbrook with the popcorn, Kyrie Irving, like the list goes on in regards to Trey Young in New York, where they spit on him. Like, what's your take in regards to the sudden shift that's been happening with the fans and the players?
Nelly?
So I'm gonna probably be kind of controversial right now because all the players being attacked are Black, and some of these fans ain't Black. So I got to say about that. Also, Ja Morant's parents were harassed in Utah that were white, and they were saying racial things to Ja Morant's parents. Security had to intervene twice when they're playing in Utah. We got and like I totally agree with what Kyrie said in terms of the players should be protected. Right. That's why I ain't mad at Katie having security the other night in Milwaukee. I get it because at a point now in the NHL, we've seen players have personal security, escort them to cars because of racial fans. And in the NBA with Westbrook last year with Golden State Warriors play with that fan who I think tried to countersuit him. Like this is enough. And as you notice, once the last two fans, I think the Knick fan who spit on Trey, and I think the one in Boston, they got prosecuted. And since that happened, fans have been quiet. Like I haven't heard of any fan episode in the last 3 weeks because I think now it's like, hey, if you do something, like we're gonna arrest you and you're gonna be charged. Even that Washington fan who ran in the court, he also got charged. So it's like, hold up. So if I do this prank, I can get arrested. That's what needs to be done. And I'm happy the NBA stepped up and those cities stepped up and said, hey, if you want to be a jerk, we're going to charge you and prosecute you. So I'm happy that happened, to be honest. How about your thoughts, Akil?
I think for me, you're absolutely right in what you say. And I say part of it is a failure of media. I think the 24-hour sports news cycle has absolutely failed, and it's contorted people's minds. It even contorted my mind to a certain extent. You got these guys who've never played these sports on TV, and what they're doing is they're assassinating the characters of young Black men. And they're really playing into the hands of the corporations that pay for these shows and to the teams that own things. So you take the example of Andre Drummond, who was sat by the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers outright said, we're sitting him because we want to move him. And so this was a cool situation, and everybody was on board, and no one on First Take and no one on Fox Sports News said anything about the Cleveland Cavaliers and their organization. And then James Harden sits out at the beginning of the season for the Houston Rockets, claiming that he would like to be traded. But now the player chooses to sit instead of the organization or the owner telling him he has to sit. And all of a sudden, James Harden's name is dragged through the dirt. And the guy who was once an MVP of this league is now known as a problem guy and a character guy. And now they're talking about strip clubs. And now they're talking about all this. But when he was winning MVPs, it wasn't. And so you've got Skip and Shannon, these guys, and they're talking all this stuff. And I think people are sitting in their houses and they're just listening to people and they're watching these memes and people just really like I've never like and Anthony Edwards said the other day, I've never seen more people happy to see an athlete fail than LeBron James. It just seems like we're just reveling and wanting to see people fail, and it's part of the culture. So as a culture and as arbiters of the culture, I think, you know, a lot of the sports networks have failed the athletes in this sense, and that's why Kyrie feels the way he does, and that's why Naomi doesn't want to do these press conferences, because you got people who have freaking hate them, asking them questions, people who are openly racist and framing stories that are slandering them and working against their chances to win championships, and you want me to take time out of my day to sit down and talk to this person? That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. So when you have players who are being harassed by fans. Actually, I just want to kind of pivot here because Akil, you mentioned something very interesting. You mentioned earlier about Europe and soccer. I had a situation where just even maybe 2 weeks ago, and for the life of me, I can't remember the teams, but here's what happened. There was a foul and it was somewhere in Europe. There's a foul. You know how normally there's a foul in soccer, people crowd around the ref and they bid their case of why it shouldn't be a foul, why it should be. This is by the supporters' end. As this is happening, I'm seeing water bottles being tossed from the side. One of the water bottles came like a missile and hit some guy in the side of his head, and the man dropped, and he was woozy. What I noticed though is he got hit in the side of the head with a water bottle, and the response from collectively the refs, the players, I'm talking maybe 8-10 players, was like, hey, calm down, you know, don't throw things. And I'm thinking, wow. In Europe, I think because maybe they're immune to it, and that's part of the culture of the game, where you're going to have, you know, like a lot of that fan interaction. It almost felt like they've been in that situation before, so it wasn't such a shock. While if that were to happen here, think about this: Russell Westbrook is getting popcorn thrown on him, and it's like it's a big deal. I can just see over there where they might think, go ahead.
I think one of the things is in North America, we're the home of individual rights. There's the whole world. It's nation before person, right? It's a lot of that. I think so. The way we work as individuals, like you go to Africa, you go to China, it's nation before person. North America is the new world because we have these, you know, these charters and rights to freedom and stuff like that. That's not universal sentiment. So our political conversations are always going to differ big time from them. And that's, you know, there's a lot of water between us in so many different ways. Right.
Also, you see how Dame and the interaction he had on Twitter with one of the players saying, hey, you know what, get to X amount of wins or I'm going to lose my house, right?
Yeah.
I think of these kind of interactions where like the interaction between the fan and the athlete is more personal, more common than it would have been, say, 20, 30 years ago. You know, there's like a disconnect where like the athlete was up here and the fan, there wasn't that interaction. I think social media.
And one of the big differences in Europe is this, like, it's the team before the player. Like in Europe, like they care about that. If they're a Chelsea fan, if you leave Chelsea, it's like here, like all LeBron's going to Golden State. I'm gonna get my Golden State LeBron jersey.
That's so true.
Right.
That's so true.
Right. Or whatever team you've said you're going for, that's your team. So if Messi leaves, it's Messi. You know what I'm saying? So,
good point, because I feel like a lot of North American fans are player fans, like you mentioned, like they follow players over teams. I mean, there are a few avid, like, you know, the Leafs fans, they're Leaf fans through and through, but that's really like unique to like certain franchises. But in North America, majority of fans are player fans.
Yeah, that's again back to our individualistic culture, right? We were individual here as opposed to a Muslim nation, right? Where your religion, your family, your culture proceed over your own individual wants. Right, and that's just the gulf that we have with a lot of other parts of the world.
True indeed.
Facts, man. But how about you, Faheem, on the fan behavior? Your thoughts on when you saw like the Trae Young spit, the bottle thrown,
That's disgusting.
During Corona?
Yeah,
bro. Listen, man. Who was it? Tristan Thompson was saying like if we spit on him, like on how he'd react. I'm like, Tristan, stop. The Brampton man got to come out, right?
That's biological warfare.
Yeah,
That is.
for real. That's like a form of assault. Like, you know, it's like coughing in someone's face in a pandemic. It just, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we could pretty much just tie this up to say fans are getting a little bit too comfortable right now.
A little bit.
Just a little bit too comfortable.
A tad. Just a tad. That's all.
So on the way out of this, let me ask though, so this all happened within a week.
Yo, it was wild.
As things start to open up, do you see possibly this being a trend or just a blip of people just finally getting a chance to get out?
I think it's a blip. I think there's other blips to come. I don't think they'll all come in the basketball court. I think when, you know, nightclubs open up, you'll see a series of events that are going to make you question whether people are sane. When malls open up, you see a series of events and question whether people are sane. So as we start to open up, you know, we're going to see the worst of people before we see the best of people sometimes, I think. And it's just to be expected after a year and a half of global crisis.
Yeah, for real. Well, y'all be safe out there. If someone spits on you, I'm not going to condone violence, but I get it. I get it.
My advice is ask yourself, in a rare situation, what did I do to make that person spit on?
Oh my goodness, I can't, man. I can't.
All right, so let's start handing out some flowers right now. The bouquet is about to get rolled out.
Yo, y'all, get your bouquets out. Get your bouquets out.
All right, Nelly J, let's go to For the Culture.
For the Culture, we like to highlight people and individuals that are for the culture. And today, we're going to highlight Mr. Akil Augustine.
That's right.
He is a Courtside Reporter, producer, creator, okay, color analyst, co-founder, program director. He's enough titles. He's an official host, podcaster, okay, and he was working with the G League for the Raptors 905. Let's please give our flowers to Mr. Akil Augustine.
That's right. Flower time.
Listen, Akil, like, you're that dude that I say protect at all costs. Like, the Toronto culture in the media, we really appreciate you because you bring that actual realness to TV and sports.
Yeah.
You do, because as you know, a lot of your co-hosts do not. So we're just going to let it, we don't. I'm sorry, co-hosts. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all are cool. We like you too, but Akil is our dude, okay? He's our dude. So Akil, with all the things you've done, you actually dropped recently the Wellness Drop, which is also a good project. So before I get into that, we want to understand what was the one thing that kind of made you want to pursue this dream of being that leader in media? Because, you know, in Canada, growing up, we didn't see that many Black folks on TV. So so what gave you the courage to kind of burst into that scene?
Yeah, shout out to Master T one time. For me, it was having come from Trinidad and Brooklyn and like being surrounded by Blackness for like the very early part of my life, and to come to Toronto and to see that there was a huge lack of that. And then as I got older and discovered what my skill set was, like I got into television for attention, right, and for affection and for money. And as you know, you get older, you kind of need to tie purpose to what you're doing. You know, watching all Oprah's Super Soul Sundays and stuff, you know, that theme keeps coming up with all the self-help books. And so I just said, you know what I think what would have made my life easier would have been if there was someone who really came from where I came from, looked how I looked, and sounded how I sounded, and who openly was that way, who could offer me advice and be there for me. And even if I couldn't like get physically close to that person, just have their presence out there in the media so that I would have known that it was okay to be me. That's what I try to do for all the knuckleheads out there. There's a lot of different representations of Black men. There's a lot of Black men that will toe the line. There's a lot of Black men that will work harder than, 2 times harder than a white man so he can find his way. I refuse to do any of that. I'm just going to make noise and be myself and be as Black as possible, however people want to interpret that to be. And hopefully the kids that come after me, they'll have a little bit more room to be Black too.
I love that. So like you're in a mission to serve now and really kind of make multiple Akils all over the place, right? In Canada.
Charlie Lindsay coming up next. Dwayne Watson's a man making moves, making power. Young Faheem, young Nelly. We got Shaylin. We got so many young people coming up. Toronto is a hotbed of talent, and we just need an opportunity.
That's amazing.
To yours, I also want to shout out Donovan Bennett also.
You
On the podcast.
Donovan Bennett, yeah, Kayla Gray.
With the basketball sports bureau, or it's a Black Sports Business, or Black Sport in Business last night with him. We just did a live with them. Shout out to them.
Oh, that's so amazing. And I mean, like, Akil, you've done quite a few interviews, like quite a few in like your quest of making multiple Akils all over the city. Hey, he got to make multiple. We need multiple Akils. I'm just putting it out in the universe. I'm gonna manifest this for him. Okay, shoot. But Akil, so out of everyone you've interviewed, which one stands out the most? Like, which one was like, it changed my life when he spoke to me, like in your past?
Oh man, I mean, over a series of interviews, it would have to be Dwayne Casey.
Ooh,
Dwayne Casey, the man who he took a liking to me, and he invested in me as the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. He was just someone, and I respect him a lot because he's not like me. He's a Southern man. He's a church man. He's very clean. He's on time. He's got a lot of the assets that I don't have. But he really challenged me to be better and to show a better face. I think that's what saved me in a couple of situations. So I think having the opportunity to prove to myself to Dwayne Casey a couple of times and having him challenge me on camera a couple of times have probably been some of the more important interactions I've ever had with someone on camera. But I will say, being the only person to interview Kawhi on that bus during the parade is up there. It's like one of the best.
Ooh. Hold up. So, question: was Kawhi lit? Like was he lit?
He had his arm around. If you look at the video of the photo, it's like we're boys. Like he's got. What did it happen? Like, so I got up there, grabbed me, put his arm around me, and I'm like, I know we've talked a couple of times, but like he had to be lit, and he needed me like hold him up or something because I was like, yo, this is what is going on my Instagram.
No, because Kawhi's always been like this calm.
It was completely different that day. I've never seen Kawhi. That was, you knew he was happy because that was different.
So,
I love that.
Akil, I want to ask in 905. So the Raptors 905. I was randomly scrolling. I checked one of the G League games, and I didn't know. I was like, yes. Do shots up. Said yes, Akil. All right. I saw you were calling. I haven't seen you do the color part before, or the calling of games, which I was really impressed. Great job, by the way. So I want to say, while you're there, the G League, as we know, for those on the come up, not quite ready, but getting there. You had a firsthand experience to see some of the younger talent that's coming up. Just real quick, is there anyone out there, since you were there literally courtside calling games, that really stuck out to you that we should be keeping an ear out for, since it is the G League coming into the league?
Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is going to be a huge talent. He's only been playing basketball for like 4 or 5 years. Transplanted from the United States, from Africa to the United States. He's going to be sick. I don't think enough people are talking about him. Bit of a project right now. Not a great shooter, but he's a great rebounder, great defender. Just body it's an Adonis, right? I think I got a chance to watch Jonathan Kuminga, and to me, he's really impressed. There's a lot of guys that, like, the thing about the NBA is it's so situational, because I feel like I see guys in the G League consistently who have been right there. And it's just about the right time and situation. I think there's a bunch of Mike Jameses out there as you see him play for the Brooklyn Nets. I think there's a couple guys out there, right? But it's like, does a team need a guy who thinks about shooting that early in the clock, coming at the 15th spot off the bench? Or would they rather have a Quinn Cook type person who's going to try and get your Jordan Clarkson off for more shots? So much basketball becomes such a cerebral sport that I don't think it's about whether guys are good enough anymore, because we're creating enough product, which is kind of sad, right? Now it's become plug and play situational. These guys are like chess pieces on a board now.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you about that, because I feel like you mentioned, are there also some politics involved? Because I feel like if you're signed with certain, like with Clutch Sports, a certain bigger like sport agents, that you get more opportunity to get those positions. So do you think there's some kind of favoritism, politics behind the scene too?
1,000%. Shouts out to Clutch Sports for putting themselves in that position, because before it was just a bunch of white guys running their agencies, picking their players, right? And I've seen some guys get drafted that I'm like, why the hell did that guy get drafted? I think LeBron's a better GM than most guys. So Clutch Sports, I think Rich Paul's got a better eye for talent than most guys. So I think the game's changed, but I think it's always been that. I think it's always been the power brokers of sport, and I think it's not going to change. It's just now the power brokers are starting to look a bit different.
So I just realized during COVID, when you were calling the game, you were here at home, right?
Yeah.
Here, okay.
Yeah,
right, but so when you were calling the game and you were actually going through the motions, I'm just wondering the difference between having sorry?
The most weird.
Yeah, because I haven't heard you call a game before. Is that your first time? Was that?
It was super challenging. I get to the gym early and I talk to everybody. That's my angle, right? I'm not trying to be like a traditional. I don't want to do the broadcast like everyone's done the broadcast. I have a skill set that I want to bring to the table, and a lot of it comes from storytelling. So I need to get to talk to the person, hear how they talk, what they talk about, and I really want to get into the story of it, right? And but this was a blessing because it made me focus on the analytics and the stats more, and the timeouts and the shot clock. And so it was probably a good introduction for me, someone who relies so much on the gift and on my storytelling acumen, to focus on the brass tacks basketball things, because that's really where I need to improve if I'm going to get better at this and if I'm going to get a real chance at it. So it was probably a good situation, but they probably didn't get to see the best of me simply because I didn't get to tell stories like I would.
I heard you.
But you
I
did
was
great, though.
Very impressed.
Akil.
I'm not just saying that. Really, I was like,
hey, forget Raptor 905. Raptors, period. Need to hire your tail because the still voices be here every week. Like, put some spice up in that Raptors. Put some spice.
Right.
I'm saying, Akil, I'm sorry. I say it like it is. You know what I'm saying?
I'm good. So you good.
I'll say it for you. No, I'll say it for you. So you have the hangout that you still do, right? And you also have your podcast. So do you still work on the podcast as well? The unofficial.
The podcast turned into a YouTube series that we just started.
Perfect.
The podcast will come back. I think the pandemic.
I know.
Took the wind out of that one, right? It wasn't a one-man show. I really relied on my boys to do that one with me. We weren't able to get together over the pandemic. So the one thing you always promise with me is there's going to be more content coming. There's going to be more projects. I'm never going to stop. So
can't stop. Don't stop. You're like Puff Daddy. You're like Bad Boy.
I am Bad Boy. Bad Boy Records, man. I'm Bad Boy. No Limit and Rockefeller Records.
So on the way out, I want you to talk about the wellness project because I saw that and it was really interesting. So what kind of sparked up that?
I'm moving into a new phase of my life. I'm older. I'm 38 years old now. I've gone to therapy. And so there's so much more that I've learned about myself. And so I'm kind of moving into the phase of getting into health and wellness. I've invested a lot in myself. And I feel like it's a way to introduce like self-care to Black people through these pieces of content. And I think it's important that I do that because I think they need to hear it. And that's why I'm starting to talk about the fact that I'm going to therapy. So all these things are just ways for me to kind of like introduce people to different modalities of therapy so that we can start the conversation. And just, I want Black people to take care of themselves. I want Toronto to take care of themselves. I love that. That's really where I'm going with this. Like, I want to take the skill set that I learned in reporting on basketball and kind of bring that hotness to like all the other stuff that we could be doing.
That's amazing. Cause like now you want to offer service and I mean, life-changing advice, right? Because I think sometimes in the Black community, we don't take mental health seriously. We don't take certain things because most of us are Caribbean or African backgrounds. Our parents, unfortunately, didn't have that mindset. So we now have to be the leaders in that. So I appreciate you doing that. Guys, the wellness drop. Make sure, first of all, if you're not following Akil Augustine on Instagram, what are you doing with yourself?
Like, yeah, man, I put so much stuff up there. Follow, man.
Follow him. His website is akilaugustine.com. Okay, it's pretty simple. And actually, on your website on the way out, what I love is that you had a statement which I want to actually read out verbatim because I'm like, this is a dope statement. So what it was, you said, to educate and entertain the world by being an example of joyous learning and growth.
I wrote that when 18 years old and it's been my mantra.
Mic freaking drop, y'all. Akil Augustine for the culture, period. The end. Let's go to the next segment, Faheem.
All right. So let's go to That's Absurd.
That's absurd. Faheem, bro. What was absurd this week? What was absurd?
So let's go to the NBA tampering fines.
Oh, these fines, man.
Daryl Morey tweeted out in regards to Steph, and sorry, not Steph. What regarding Steph? Seth being a Sixer, and he made a tweet saying join him, which was kind of taken out of context. And Pat Riley also, he had made a comment on a media outlet, whether it be a podcast, saying about how he's left the key under the mat for LeBron James, all in jest. But the NBA has fined each $50,000, $75,000 for the tampering of these, what would seem to be minor, minimal comments.
Or a joke? Like, I mean, is LeBron going to go back to Miami, guys? Come on. Let's be real.
Come on. Absurd.
Here's the trick to all that. You know who's asking for these fines? It's the owners. The owners don't want anyone in the media or any member of anyone that they have sway over should never work against them. That's the mentality. So if you go to the NBA and because here's the thing, we know the power of the word. Yeah, sure. Him saying he's leaving the keys under the mat isn't real. But what if that sparks a conversation that leads to another conversation that leads to another conversation? Then boss is pissed the F off, right?
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of just I think these fans are these owners have worked into the collective bargaining agreement stuff to protect their interests.
So question, Akil, because those fines were greater than COVID protocol fines. That's my problem. Like these executives aren't getting paid as much as players, and these player fines are what, 50,000, 10,000, and their fines are a lot more than just like a COVID protocol. So I think it's just not consistent. But I get it. I get why they did it. I just feel like y'all are being extra. Because even find the tweet that Daryl said, join him. Guys, it's a tweet. So it's like is social media now like provoking owners? Because I feel like maybe if that media outlet, like you said, if they say, oh, he says this, and the way they spin it, it makes it worse than it really was. You know what I'm saying? So is the media also to blame to this as well?
Well, the media amplifies any message. Like we just saw a great example with Ronaldo and Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah, 4 billion. Gonzo.
The Coca-Cola bottle,
right,
cost Coca-Cola $4 billion.
Right.
So think about that example, and you bring it into this. It's like just by Pat Riley saying that, now Faheem and Nelly and Akil are on their podcast talking about that. And that's a narrative that the owners don't want. And it shows the power of the players, which I love, right? Like, we can wreck some stuff. Shouts out to Ronaldo, man. He opened a lot of eyes. I'm excited to see what the fallout of COVID is going to be.
Well, right. But I mean, like water is better than Coke, guys. I'm sorry.
But, doesn't the owner, like Coke's ownership, own also a water company also? I'm pretty sure like
actually owns the rights to water in a lot of countries where the people who live in the country do not have access to water. There's a lot of places where Coke owns water and they reserve it for the Coke plant, where the neighboring communities, native communities, don't have access to wells. You know what? I don't know who's sponsoring into it.
No, we're not. No, we good. We good.
No,
we're good. No, I mean, honestly, like I saw today, Nestle won a lawsuit because they actually were paying people so terribly in Africa, and because they broke the law in US law, but in Africa law, it wasn't broken. So they were able to, I mean, a lot of these corporations, like you mentioned, they have their own agenda. That's why as people, we really have to try to find local and like economic friendly companies, because that is the best for the future of this planet Earth, right? But no, good point, Akil, on that.
Capitalism.
Yep. Capitalism is that bitch. Sorry, it's that bitch.
All right. So unfortunately, that's the time we have
with Mr. Akil Augustine.
Roses.
That was episode 44. So, Akil, we'd like to give our guests a chance to do shout outs, my dear. So the floor is yours.
Sure, man. If I'm going to shout out anybody, I'm going to shout out Charlie Lindsay and Tier Zero Productions. If anybody ever needs anything in video, I think those kids are coming up and they're up next. I want to shout out Kickback Connect, great charity that's providing refurbished shoes to kids across the city, as well as physical education and opportunities spaced out at Regent Park. They do great stuff. I want to shout out the Northern Kings AAU basketball team and my best friend Vidal Messiah. That's the best basketball team. If your kid wants to learn to play basketball, got dreams of being a pro, there's no better place to play than the Northern Kings. I want to shout out my homegirl Kayla, who's got a brand new show called The Shift on tsn.ca. You want some great Canadian content, you watch Kayla and what she's doing over there. I think that's about it, man. That's the team. Just keep it moving.
Awesome. Great. And I want to shout out Mr. Akil Augustine. Thank you for being on the podcast. You know, I'm watching you. I'm watching you, Akil. Okay. So continue to multiply yourself, continue to add to the culture. You are someone that we look up to. We, all of us in the media are coming up in the media. So keep being that leader. No pressure. No pressure, buddy. I also want to shout out Simone Biles because a lot of media did not give her flowers. So Simone won her 7th consecutive U.S. Gymnastics Championship title. Mic drop, Faheem.
All right. So I just want to make this quick. Akil, it's an honor. I want to give you a visual. You know how when you go to a play or an opera, and at the end you see roses coming from the balcony and roses coming from. I'm flowering you, just showering you right now with all roses, roses and roses and roses. Yeah.
Yo, get him an acting job too, yo. Add actor to his thing. Add actor to his list of things he has to do. Add acting.
Okay, honestly, it's been a pleasure. Hope to have you on again sometime in the future. And let's put this episode in the books.
All right, y'all. That was 44. If you had a good time, you enjoyed the episode, click on that subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Faheem.
That's right. You know where to find us. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. As Nelly J said, tell a friend to tell a friend. The circle is small. Let's grow it bigger and keep growing. That's episode 44, Good Rookies Podcast. And we out. Peace.